Friday. First or Friday? Is it Friday?
I think you said,
First or Friday? It's Friday.
we can start roll call.
Director Oscui,
Here?
Director Vasquez, Director Grajeda,
Here.
Director Chacon, Director Gedney, Director Hawkins,
Here.
Director Aceituno,
Here.
President Apodaca.
Here. Okay, this one, we can go ahead like this.
Yeah, we do the invocation and the pledge. The invocation.
Yeah, Director. Director Aceituno, would you lead us to the invocation? Pledge allegiance. To the pledge. You do the pledge, okay. Invocation, Director Hawkins. What's that? Invocation.
Please bow your head. Our Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for all the blessings that you have bestowed on each and every one of us. Please watch over us as we conduct our meetings, conduct them in a very honorable manner, and that each one of us will behave in a very friendly fashion. And in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Put your right hand over your heart and repeat after me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public comments and presentations.
No presentation, we have 17 requests to speak. They're in random order. The first speaker, Martha Camacho Rodriguez.
Good morning. I'm a resident from Downey, and I'm an ally with Food and Water Watch, Save the Deltas, Dignity and Power Now. All of these are grassroots and organizations that deal with environmental justice. And one of the things that I'm here that I'm very concerned about is that we don't have a lot of representation from our communities at large. And what's disconcerting about that is that you will be making a vote today for our communities. I live in Downey. We do not, excuse me, we do not import water for our residents. So as I look at the communities around me that do have a lot of economic issues and people living at or below the poverty level, so people struggling to survive just check to check paying their bills are going to have a huge impact on their livelihood if you pass a vote where someone who does not even live in our area will benefit from water. So to colonize water, to privatize it, to make it hard for other people to actually have access to water is an injustice. It's pretty much criminal. And when I made comments previously about individuals in the pockets of developers, in the pockets of underwriters, in the pockets of big business, people who stand to make money from this deal, that is a crime. Because as public officials, you were elected to represent your constituents, your communities. And that means that when you vote against the community, you vote against their livelihood, you vote against whether or not people have access to clean water. Our money should be going to our communities to build, rebuild, and to maintain our structures, to get clean water for communities like Compton, communities in other areas that have manganese in their water, or just have water that looks like mud. We should be worried about our water, our communities, not about the Central Valley and Big Ag who stands to profit from us. So it's very important that today you opened up this meeting with the prayer in hopes that the community will go ahead and act I don't know, I guess by your standards that we should act okay. Well, as this group prays and salutes the flag, you need to remember that while we are not taking care of our homeless veterans on Skid Row, while we are not looking at the waters in Compton, that you shouldn't be worried about the water in Central Valley or the tunnels. That's not our business. Our business is here. Thank you.
Scott Smith.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. My name is Scott Smith. I am President and CEO of the Cerritos Regional Chamber of Commerce. But today I'm here wearing another hat, that is Executive Director of the Gateway Chambers Alliance. And I'm here today to express support for the California Water Fix and to ask you to do the same. The Gateway Chambers Alliance is a collective voice of business within numerous cities in the Gateway region. In fact, we represent 10 local chambers of commerce in the Gateway region of Southeast Los Angeles County. The combined population of the cities represented by our chamber members numbers in the hundreds of thousands, and our collective membership exceeds 2,000, which equates to hundreds and thousands of jobs. The Alliance knows that the metropolitan's service area contains close to 20 million inhabitants and that it generates annually more than $1 trillion. This equals more than 50% of the state's $2.3 trillion annual economy. The region where 30% of our water supply must pass through before being pumped to the region for our parks, groundwater basins, hospitals, and homes is in serious trouble and in desperate need of necessary investment and upgrade. Without these modernizing investments and upgrades, the amount of water lost to the ocean will continue to decline over the coming decades. California Water Fix is that important investment that will ensure the reliability and quality of water for our communities while helping to protect the Delta ecosystem. The Alliance understands that the investment will add, on the low end, 60 cents to communities receiving groundwater from the Water Replenishment District and up to $6 a month to large industrial users like Vernon. But the average bill will increase by only about $2 per household. The Alliance further understands that all other alternatives will cost significantly more and have far greater impact on ratepayers at all income levels. This is our best chance in decades to implement a fix that will fix this system. Failure to do so will leave the fundamental problem unsolved, and the system could collapse. This is a generational decision that will literally change the landscape and the hopes and economic future of this region and this state. On behalf of all of the Gateway Chambers Alliance members, I urge you to vote yes to support this project. Thank you.
Raul Rodriguez.
Good morning. I'm a resident of Downey, and the reason I'm here, I don't agree with the plan you guys have. As a resident, you guys have to think about, the community, not only about the businesses, like people come and represent the CEO of different chambers. You guys have to think about the community. They're the ones that voted for you to be here and hear our voice. Now, they always think about business and the ones that are paying as the residents. I don't see too many residents here from other cities when you guys have to communicate more with the community, not with the business owners. Right? So I don't agree about this, and that's what I can say.
Sal Renteria.
Yes, hello, good morning. My name is Saul Renteria. I'm the Public Affairs Director for the Southern California District Council of Laborers. Here, also in attendance, I got my labor brothers, and I would ask that they come forward and that they stand with me. As a laborers union, we represent 30,000 construction laborers in Southern California, many of them which live in our community, that live in this area, in this community. On behalf of the Southern California District Council of Laborers and our business manager, Mondo Esparza, we at the Laborers would like to express our strong support for the California Water Fix and encourage this board and the Central Basin Municipal Water District, and the leaders throughout the state to do the same and approve the resolution to support the California Water Fix. We must move this project forward to protect our water supply. Water is essential to our physical health and well-being. It is the lifeblood and a fundamental need for all families. While Southern Californians have the right to clean and reliable water supply, the delivery system of moving water to our region is old, vulnerable, and in desperate need of improvement. For these reasons and much more, we ask that this board please support the Water Fix project. Thank you very much.
John Cermeño?
Good morning, everyone. My name is John Cermeño. I'm a local resident from Commerce. I've lived there for many years. I was raised in Boyle Heights, and I'm a native Angelino. A lot of yous I know from the past. I went to Lincoln High School. I'm a member of 3 organizations. I'm the executive director of the Maywood Chamber of Commerce, and we have a lot of chambers that are with us on this. So I'm also a member of the what we call the Free-Led Communities Coalition, which we had a rally here not very long ago. We had over 400 people here. I'd like to thank the Kevin here for Kevin Hunt and Art Chacon for allowing us to have parking. I didn't know it was going to be this big, so I talked to Kevin about that, but nevertheless, those people live in this area. Our main, and like I said before, I said, look, times have changed. The people now are waking up. As you see all the chaos that's going on throughout the nation, the people are waking up here too. And those of you that were elected and are not going to serve the people, you're going to serve big money, you're going to serve the profiteers. There's a movement to oust those people that don't fight for us, that don't represent us. And the 400 people we had here represents that. And all those people, they came from Bell Gardens, they came from Commerce, they came from the local area, and they're not very happy about this because a lot of our people are dying of cancer. There's clusters of areas where between 10 and 20 people have died of cancer. And it affects, the clusters are in every city. They're in Commerce, they're in Boyle Heights, they're in Maywood, and I know because I walked those streets. I walked trying to get access agreements to have those areas tested for lead. So I talked to the residents. They told me those horror stories where the cities don't help them, where the politicians just sit back and dine with the rich and dine with the powerful and never serve our people, even to the point that they're dying. What is that? That's insane. When you put yourself before the people. In a democracy, the people rule. So part of our struggle is for democracy, and that's going to occur as we organize, as we get bigger. We're growing. We're not getting smaller. The church is with us. The church, part of our leadership comes from the Catholic Church. Father John was here. He was one of our leaders. He oversees 9 or 10 churches in the local area, which include Boyle Heights, which include Maywood, which includes Commerce. So all those people that go to church, all the community people that live there, they're very concerned about these boards that go around funding projects that are not going to benefit our community. We're going to be taxed for someone else to be benefited. That's bull. We want you to vote no. and represent the voice of the people. And like I said, we're going to remember how you voted. There's a lot of our people that don't stand up for our people. They're mainly concerned with their self-interest. I have years of my history. Let me tell you something. My dad fought in World War II. He fought against Hitler. My dad didn't have any papers. My dad was a good fighter. He got many medals. He was a valiant fighter in World War II. So a lot of these people today won't even go to the service. But they control things, and they control.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Your time is up.
Raquel Espinosa.
Buenos días.
Good morning.
Yo soy residente de Compton
I'm a resident from Compton,
y vengo a pedirles
and I come to ask
que voten no
that you vote no
en este proyecto,
on this project
porque nuestras familias están preocupadas
because our families are concerned
por el dinero
for the money
que no nos alcanza.
that is not sufficient.
Las rentas suben y suben
The rents are rising
y los biles también.
and the bills as well.
Subirles el agua podría a muchas familias en más dificultades.
Increasing the water would put a lot of families in a difficult position.
Es todo. Gracias.
Thank you.
María Elena Llamas.
Buenos días,
Good morning.
mi nombre es María Elena Lamas,
My name is Maria Elena.
vengo de la ciudad de Compton
I'm here from Compton,
y soy miembro
and I'm a member,
y activista
an activist,
y vengo a abogar
and I come to advocate
en contra de este proyecto.
against this project.
Hoy me presento ante ustedes,
Today I'm here before you.
soy miembro de esta organización de la FWW
I'm a member of the FWW
y defensa del medio ambiente
and for the protection of the environment
y recursos naturales.
and natural resources.
Mi presencia de este día
My presence here today
es para abogar
is to advocate
por justicia
for justice
y para sugerirles
and to suggest
que piensen bien
that you think
en el proyecto
about the project
que van a aprobar
that you are going to approve
y para que tomen decisiones correctas
and that you make the right decision
para el futuro de este estado
for the future of this state
y nuestras comunidades.
and our communities.
Y sobre todo,
And above all,
pensar
think
en los daños
about the
y
damages
efectos
and effects,
irreversibles
irreversible,
que causaría
that you would cause
a la ecología,
to the ecology,
a la agricultura
agriculture,
y a la economía,
and economy.
que es fuente de vida
That is a source of
Industrial.
life, industrial,
y los daños que causaría
and the damages it would cause
a la flora y la fauna
to the environment
y al medio ambiente.
and the surrounding environment.
Y la extinción de peces y aves.
And the extinction of birds and fish.
Y causaría también
That would also cause
daños
damages
a toda la bahía
to the bay
y a los habitantes.
and the habitants.
Sería un costo
Would be a cost,
alto para la vida
a high cost for life,
y para para los contribuyentes
and for the
y dueños de casas, negocios
and for the businesses
de todo California.
from all of California.
Aumentaría.
It would raise,
Y los usuarios aumentarían
and the bills would rise
las facturas de luz y agua
for power and water,
y haciéndonos creer que
and making us believe
que recibiríamos agua pura.
that we would be receiving pure water.
Mentira.
Lie.
Lo único que quieren
The only thing that
es endeudarnos
is to put us in debt
por más de 60
for
años.
more than 60 years.
La ambición de los políticos,
The mission of the politicians,
burócratas,
bureaucrats,
empresas,
and businesses,
inversionistas, millonarios,
millionaires,
no les importa
they don't care
destruir la vida,
to destroy the
los
lives,
tesoros de la naturaleza,
the treasures of the environment,
para explotar
to exploit
y marginar a los pobres
and marginalize the poor,
y robarles su patrimonio y dignidad.
and take away their dignity.
¿Por qué? Yo me pregunto, ¿por qué ellos,
I ask myself
cuando
why,
piensan en hacer nuevos proyectos,
when they think
no
about
piensan
making
en los
projects,
daños que van a causar a la naturaleza,
they don't think
a nuestra
about
tierra?
damages
¿Y por
to
qué
the
ellos
environment
no pagan de sus bolsillos
and,
el dinero que se va a requerir para estos proyectos?
and why they don't pay out of their
¿Por
own
qué la
pocket
comunidad tiene que pagar
for their projects?
impuestos altos
Why does the community have to pay
para aumentar la vida
taxes to improve life
y a ver siempre los más pobres?
and affect the poor?
Despertemos de esta realidad
Let's wake up from this
y
reality
salvemos a Delta,
and save the Delta.
que es maravilla
That is a beautiful
turística de nuestra naturaleza.
touristic place of
Gracias.
our nature. Thank you.
John Hacker, also.
Good morning, I'm John Hakel. I'm the Executive Director of the Southern California Partnership for Jobs. I represent 2,750 contractors and 90,000 union folks. We have studied this water fix for the past couple years. It seems practical, it's logical. What we haven't talked about is when this is built, this will incorporate thousands of good-paying jobs for a number of years. Everyone's looking for quality of life. I believe this project is necessary, but the upside is that we will have numerous construction workers that will have quality of life. I ask that you support that, and as a Downey resident for 30 years, I thank you for all that you've done for us. Thank you.
Esperanza Vielma.
Good morning. Again, I'm here before you. And I just wanted to remind you all, besides the organization Restore the Delta as the Environmental Justice Director, I also serve on the Innovation Hub of San Joaquin County, of which we represent all 7 cities of the county, including the San Joaquin Partnership, A.G. Spanos Companies, and some other private entities in the San Joaquin County area. I'm also the Vice President for the Environmental Justice Coalition for Water, a statewide organization that will continue to have presence in the Los Angeles area. I'm also the Vice President of the Chicano Latino Alumni Association for UC Berkeley, and that is a statewide and international organization with a very strong presence in Southern California. I've gone around to various cities throughout Southern California to speak on behalf of Restore the Delta and to inform the public, especially the environmental justice communities, of what the actual costs will be to them and to the council members in those various cities. However, Metropolitan still continues on to state facts that are not true. For example, they'll say simple things as it can be 1 tunnel or 2 tunnels. You know, it doesn't really matter because there's no cost associated to that 1 tunnel. And then they assure the city council members they will not pay for the water. If they're not taking water like Downey or other cities, they're not going to pay for the water. So who's going to pay for the water? If you do the math and Westlands is out, Kern hasn't decided, the subcommittee pushed off the vote, Santa Clara Valley hasn't decided, they'll decide on the 10th, then who's going to pay for the rest of it if it's not going to be any of the cities that they've spoken to when we've been there as well? The state audit came out this morning, and there's no financing plan, no clear picture. I just ask that you consciously vote for whom you represent, just like the Compton mom just explained. to vote with that conscience for those people in Hawaiian Gardens, in Cerritos, in Paramount, in Downey. And then for the jobs and for the laborers, I agree with the laborers in terms of the need for jobs, that those jobs need to be secure and local. I don't really understand how it is that they will receive the jobs that are going to be in Northern California and will not begin construction until almost 10 years from now, when all the lawsuits are said and done. As of now, we have almost 60 lawsuits. And I know for a fact that my father, being a retired member of the Laborers International Union of North America, Local 73, who helped build the San Luis Reservoir, he would have gotten the job in Northern California. However, the folks from here, unless they move there, will not be receiving those jobs. Again, thank you, and I hope you vote with your conscience.
Sarah Wessa?
Good morning, board members. My name is Sarah Wessel. I am a resident of Paramount. I've been here many times. I've seen many of the presentations. I don't understand how these consultants that are being hired to look out for the best interest of the communities give presentations with facts that are not correct. Facts that are not correct are practical lies. If they don't have all the information, if they don't have the actual numbers, how can they want you guys to vote yes on a project that people are pulling out left and right? They still don't know what the real numbers are. Everybody comes in, everybody that's a business owner, unions, oh yeah, this is good for us, this is good for us, it's only going to raise $6, your water bill is only going to raise $6. That's not true. If people are pulling out left and right and people are not deciding whether they're going to jump on this project, how can they say that? How can they guarantee that's a fact? And for us, Mr. Hawkins, you represent Cerritos and you represent Paramount, but you know that the income between Cerritos and Paramount, there's a big gap. Medium salary in Cerritos is roughly about, and I could be wrong, 65 to 95,000 a year, where Paramount is like 40,000. So I'm sure that the struggles people in Cerritos are having are not the same struggles that the people in Paramount are facing. People in Paramount are trying to decide whether they're going to pay their water bills or put food on the table. They're struggling with rent increase. Please, what type of legacy are all of you here on the board going to leave behind? This is a project that's going to affect not just us, they're going to affect our children, our grandchildren. Please vote when you have all the facts, when you have the correct numbers. Don't just vote because business owners, CEOs, or unions are saying, oh yes, this is good for us. No, this is not good for us. We don't have the actual numbers. Please take that into account. This is a very important decision. You represent all of the residents. You don't represent the CEOs. You don't represent the chambers. All of these people are here because they're gonna profit in one way or another. They're not gonna hurt, but the residents will. The residents will hurt based on this decision. Please do the right thing. You know, the state auditor has a lot of questions regarding this project. Take that into account. Don't make the wrong decision. Please vote no on this project. Thank you.
Sarah Wiltfong?
Good morning. My name is Sarah Wiltfong, and I'm here on behalf of the Los Angeles County Business Federation, also known as BizFed. BizFed is a grassroots alliance of more than 165 business organizations representing over 325,000 employers with over 3 million employees in Los Angeles County. We are the largest business advocacy organization in Southern California. As I've stated here before, our members consist of a variety of industries, including labor, hospitals, education, restaurants, sports facilities, food processors, building industries, refineries, hospitality industries, transportation agencies, and more. We are dependent on them. They provide our jobs, and all of them are dependent on a clean, steady, and cost-effective flow of water. Our region is highly dependent on an outdated water distribution system that was built mid-century to deliver water supplies to millions of residents and thousands of businesses. Should a natural disaster occur in our area or another prolonged drought, the consequences could be disastrous. The tunnels will provide a reliable flow of water to our area, not more, and which will allow us to build local supplies. While we strongly promote stormwater capture and reuse, ocean desalination, and conservation measures, it is not enough. Without the insurance of imported water, we cannot provide the stability and reliability that our economy requires. If we try to develop new local supplies to replace the imported water supply, it would cost 2 or more times as much per average household than the California Water Fix. We hear a lot about costs in these hearings. The California Water Fix is the most cost-effective solution to our water problems. It will never be cheaper to solve this problem than it is right now. We cannot conserve our way to sustainability, and we cannot recycle our way to more water. And the same people who tell you that they cannot afford the fix will be the same to hold you accountable when water is no longer coming out of their walls. BizFed strongly supports the California Water Fix, and we encourage you to support it as well. Thank you.
Daryl Serda.
Good morning, Chair and Board all. I'm Gerald. I'm also a resident of Paramount. First, I would like to mention that notifying the residents you represent needs improvement. This project has been in the works for some time, and I barely found out not long ago who represents the city of Paramount. Second, organizations are pulling out of proposed commitment as investors. You have to ask yourself why. Are they seeing this as a bad investment? Third, taxpayers will end up paying for a project that has started poorly with no set amount. And I vote no to California Water Fix. I also want to read something real quick. This is to all Department of the Secretary of Defense. Those entrusted by our nation with carrying out violence, those entrusted with the lives of our troops, and those entrusted with the enormous sums of taxpayers' money must set an honorable example in all we do. I expect every member of the department to play the ethical minefield. I need you to be aggressive and show initiative without running the ethical sidelines, where even one misstep will have you out of bounds. I want our focus to be on the essence of ethical conduct, doing what is right at all times regardless of the circumstances or whether anyone is watching, to ensure each of us is ready to do what is right without hesitation when ethical dilemmas arise. We must train and prepare ourselves and our subordinates. Our prior reflection and our choice to live by an ethical code will reinforce what we stand for, so we remain morally strong, especially in the face of adversity. Though our example and through coaching of all hands, we will ensure ethical standards are maintained. Never forget our willingness to take the oath of office and to accept the associated responsibilities means that even citizens who never met us trust to do the right thing. Never abusing our position nor looking the other way when we see something wrong. And this is from Deputy Secretary of Defense. Thank you.
Robert Lizarraga.
Good morning, Director Apodaca, General Manager Kevin Hunt, and distinguished members of the board. My name is Robert Lizarraga. I'm with the Labor's Employers Cooperation and Education Trust, representing around 80,000 hard-working men and women who are members of the Labor's International Union of North America, and roughly around 2,000 union contractors throughout the state of California. 30,000 to 36,000 that reside here in Southern California, laborers, and roughly around 10,000 members, laborers, who live in the greater Los Angeles district, many of who own homes and live in your jurisdictional boundaries. Water is essential to our physical health and well-being. It's our life and blood and fundamental need. While Southern Californians have the right to clean and reliable water supply, the delivery system moving water to our region is old, vulnerable, and in desperate need of improvement. More than 30% of Southern California's water supply comes from the Sierra Nevada mountains. Melted snow from these mountains provide the backbone water supply, along with good jobs and the quality of life for millions of people here in Southern California. With this supply at risk, we need the reliability that California Water Fix will provide. The project will build a modernized delivery system to ensure that high-quality water from the Sierra Nevada mountains will continue to be delivered in Southern California for generations to come. The California Water Fix will create nearly 100,000 jobs, good jobs, and protect the Southland's traditional dollar economy and hundreds of thousands of existing jobs here in Southern California. Stabilizing this base supply will also allow local agencies in Southern California to pursue more local projects to meet future water needs as a result of growth and economic development. And as you heard here today, we're not alone. And that's why LIUNA, the Laborers International Union of North America, and LESIT Southwest, the Laborers Employers Cooperation and Education Trust, is in strong support of the California Water Fix, a project that will modernize and upgrade a vital section of the state's aging water infrastructure and delivery system by constructing 2 state-of-the-art tunnels to move water supply underneath the already fragile Delta ecosystem rather than through it. Thank you.
Jessica Salons?
Hello. Sometimes when we are working, we forget why we're doing the work. Sometimes we get inundated with meetings and the day-to-day grind, and we forget why we sit in the positions that we do, who we serve. Sometimes we are in rooms with people who are not the people we serve, and we do not connect with the residents that we serve enough, and we forget their stories. I have had the honor of sitting in rooms with residents who unfortunately are living in places that you all represent, where their air is being poisoned with hexachromium-6, where their water is being poisoned, and where they cannot afford their rent, let alone an increase in water bills. I'd like to remind you just to take this opportunity, because I'm sure that in your day-to-day grind you forget about this, but the 4 tenets that you have on the wall back here: stewardship, financial integrity, water reliability, and effective communications. Stewardship tells you to act responsibly. This California State Auditor came out today and said that there has been no financial plan done, that it hasn't been done yet. I do not think that that is responsible to vote on a project that does not have an adequate cost financing plan. Then that brings us to financial integrity, which you say needs to be not only responsible, but also effective and transparent. As one of our residents said today, I think the board could do better at being more transparent with the communities that you serve, which then brings us to communications. We can be more effective, we can engage more so that we are informing our residents. I mean, so much of this project has changed on the daily. We hear the trade unions come up and we hear the businesses come up and talk, and they're saying their same speeches, but already so much has changed and they haven't updated their opinions based on the fact that Westlands has pulled out. Where will that 45% of the cost financing for the California State Water Project come from now? And then that brings us to the last one, which is water reliability, which we have talked about many times in this room. That is the statement that this project is based on is water reliability. As a millennial, as my own experience, I do not get the privilege of having reliable in my vocabulary because of climate change. So when we think about the Sierra snowpack and we hear scientists say that we cannot rely on Sierra snowpack in the future, we have to think about 20 years from now, maybe 30, when this project is finally built, will we have any water to bring down from Northern California? We need to invest locally. You need to vote no on this project once and for all. Thank you very much.
Wes May.
Good morning, board members. My name is Wes May. I'm the Executive Director of the Engineering Contractors Association, 200-member companies, 100 contractors that do heavy underground installation of water and sewer lines in Southern California. And we are certainly for the California water fix. I've been on a tour of the Delta within the last couple of months. I understand the fragility of it. We also want to commend you and the great job that you have done as commissioners or board members to take the responsibility to tackle this project head on. We need the reliability in Southern California for a variety of reasons, and we're really grateful to both Governor Browns. And if it wasn't for Governor Pat Brown, we wouldn't have the water to allow half the people to be in this room. And he created a legacy that needs to be fulfilled with the twin tunnels to allow that legacy of water to flow to Southern California. Again, half the people wouldn't be in this room if it hadn't been for that first the first California fix that we've done. This is the second part to that, and if without that, a lot of people here, they've already got their houses, they've got their businesses, but what about their children? What about their destiny? They also deserve the opportunity to participate in Southern California as we have. Again, we work hand in hand with our brethren. I sit on the coalition, our construction industry coalition on water quality. We've seen the facts, we've seen the figures. We know this is a right time, right size, right price project that needs to be moved forward right now. Thank you.
Kevin Hastert.
Good morning. My name is Kevin Hossert. I'm here on behalf of the Municipal Water District of Orange County. At MODOC, we urge this board to support the California Water Fix. In Orange County, MODOC's agencies, 25 member agencies, have approved support for the California Water Fix. Of these agencies, some agencies are 100% reliant on groundwater, some are 100% reliant on imported water, and most of them are also mixed. Also, among these agencies, they're suing each other over other things, but they seem to agree that the water fix is good for water supply in Southern California. Another thing I'd like to point out is that a couple years ago, we did our Orange County reliability study at MODOC, and basically through about 18 months of analyzing and studying, we came up with the water fix was the most reliable and cost-efficient way to bring water down to Southern California. Some of the numbers on the water fix costs, about $1,100 to $1,200 per acre foot. Compared to the Carson recycle plant, I think some of the estimates for that were around $1,800 an acre foot. So that is much more expensive than the water fix. And also, just to point out that ocean desalination down in Carlsbad, the cost for that is $2,400 an acre foot. So that's kind of the cost of it. Another thing that I just want to point out is that there's a lot of talk about Westlands, and we lost 45% of the share in the water fix, but Westlands is just one Central Valley contractor, and they only represented about 12% of that 45%. So, and then just finally, I think we'd all wish that we could go back in time to 150 years ago and have the Delta the way it was. But unfortunately, over 150 years of farming and overdevelopment up there, the Delta has been destroyed. And the Cal Water Fix starts the process of not just fixing the Delta, but providing a secure water supply for Southern California and 25 million people. So, thank you.
Mike Salazar.
Good morning. My name is Mike Salazar. I'm the Executive Director of the Bell Gardens Chamber of Commerce. We are one of many advocates within the business community. I'm not going to stay up here and repeat all kinds of other things that people have said. To me, it looks like the project makes a lot of sense. It's time for an upgrade. We would urge you to vote yes for the California water fix. Thank you.
Yvonne Watson.
Good morning, Board. My name is Yvonne Watson. I'm a resident of the city of Montebello, so I live right here. I'm also a representative of the Sierra Club's Angeles Chapter's Water Committee, and I'd like to remind all of you that I have been coming here for months, probably since January. And the first thing that I've noticed today is there are a lot of new faces here, and you have to ask yourself why. Well, I can tell you, I was at the Metropolitan Water District's meeting last week, and we listened to about 3 hours worth of testimony from the public and from quite a few of the people you see in the room today. And after the public testimony was over, after 3 hours, I needed to leave. But some of the allies who were there, they stayed for the rest of the meeting. And unfortunately, quite a few of the board members were gone when they came back from the break. And whatever Metropolitan gave as a presentation, it never answered the questions that have been raised over and over again. With Westlands, now that Westlands is pulled out, and unfortunately what you just heard right now is not true. Westlands was a huge blow to this project. And Metropolitan never really addressed what's going to happen with that. How are they going to redistribute the cost now that Westlands is no longer a part of this project? That question was never answered. You were told at the last meeting, even by your own general manager, that 26% they're asking you for, or they're saying they want to be committed to, that's just a floor. Well, you have to think about it. If that's the floor, where is the ceiling? And when people tell you that, oh, this is only going to raise the average household's rate by $2, really, I'd like to see that in writing. Until I see a contract or some kind of document with that in writing, you don't actually need to believe that. This is an environmental justice issue. And right now I am horribly, just appalled by the fact that anyone would try to blame the Bay Area for their overdevelopment. That's why we're in trouble. What about the overdevelopment here? They're the ones having their water taken away and sent down here, and yet they're getting blamed for that? This is an environmental justice issue. The people in the Bay Area and the Bay Delta area, they deserve better than this. And not only them, our people deserve better. How many people have you heard get up here and testify in Spanish? Where are the environmental justice community members from our areas? Do they even know what's going on? Do they even know what's about to happen? The fact that it was no longer a doubt now that this is going to affect property taxes as well as raise rates on water? You need to ask yourselves, where are the answers to the questions we have been asking for months? Thank you.
Elise Aguirre.
Yes. Good morning. My name is Felipe Aguirre. I come from the city of Maywood. I come to ask you to not support this project, California Water Fix. The city of Maywood, we're a member of Central Basin, but in reality, in the city of Maywood, we don't really get too much water from Central Basin. The majority of our water from the city of Maywood is from the groundwater supply, and that's really where we have our problem in our community. Because if you, as board members, all know that there's a big problem here with the groundwater in Southeast Los Angeles County. And right now, the United States Environmental Protection Agency has a major study on the groundwater contamination that comes from the city of Commerce all the way down to Paramount. And it's been moving because of the industrial pollution that we have. All those companies like Exide in the city of Vernon, Anaplex in Paramount, and many, many companies in the southeast that have been contaminating our groundwater supply with lead, arsenic, and other chemicals. That's really where our concentration should be in terms of our local water supply. We don't need to be investing in projects, like we had the peripheral canal back in the 80s when Governor Brown was around the last time, when he had hair. I remember that. At that time, the voters had the right to speak about the issue of the water supply. They took that right away several years ago. So now it's being left up to the water agencies. This is not a fix for the city of Maywood, for the residents of Maywood, for the taxpayers of our community. We're going to be paying taxation without hydration. That's not possible. We have to look at what it affects people, not how it affects somebody else. We need supplies of water that are clean, that are reliable, and that we can be vigilant. That's where our Central Basin should be involved in, not in these projects that are not going to bring anything to our community except more taxes. And when they say they don't know how to figure it out, how much it's going to cost, that's exactly the same thing that happened with Speaker Rendon. He said about another bill, on single payer. He said, we can't let that pass because, we don't know how much it's going to cost. But here you guys are going to let it pass without knowing the cost to the people that pay the taxes here in this community, and for the money for Central Basin, the property taxes. So don't support this project. I ask you because it's going to affect my residents in my community. We need you to look more at the issue of the groundwater supply, the issue of the groundwater contamination, and start developing a project for that. That's what we need you to help us with, not the question of these grand water fixes. We need local sustainable water that is inexpensive for the residents of our community, but we don't need that at the expense, of our health and safety, and bringing these projects that are not going to do anything for people. We can have jobs here in the southeast, by cleaning up the groundwater supply, by pumping new supplies here, developing ways to conserve our energy. We spend a lot of electricity to move water, but in reality, it doesn't do anything for our communities. Thank you very much.
Reverend Clarence Moore.
Good morning. I've been here before several times, and I'm Reverend Clarence Moore. I'm president of the Los Angeles Ministers Forum. We work with low-income families from Compton, Paramount, from Commerce, from several cities that need help. The type of help they need is when they have to decide to pay their mortgage or pay their rent and decide to pay the DWP bill or put food on the table. So we help them by providing resources to pay their utility bills, DWP and SoCal Gas. I'm here to appeal to you to vote no on this project. I have attended several meetings at LA City Council and Councilwoman Martinez's committee, and I've heard both sides. I've listened to DWP put the charts out with their 25% of water and everything, but Councilwoman Martinez was very smart. She asked DWP to answer 10 questions, and those questions centered around increase or property tax or bills, DWP bills, would have a definite impact on low-income families. So I appeal to you to vote no on this project. Thank you.
Janet Torres.
Good morning. My name is Janet Torres. I'm the Executive Director of the Southgate Chamber of Commerce.
The city of Southgate is actually located where the 710 and the 105. I'm sure many of you guys know that already. But we actually are like the 7th largest city in the LA County with the population of approximately 100,000 residents. I'm here today representing the chamber members to express our support for the California Water Fix project and ask that the Central Basin does the same. The Southgate Chamber realizes that the city of Southgate is supplied mostly by groundwater, and that we pay for imported water for replenishment, and that our cost would be no more than 60 cents a month to having secure water system. We believe that the California Water Fix is an investment that will ensure long-term water supply for our community while helping protect our Delta environment. Water Fix will create and protect numerous of existing jobs in the Southern California. Many of our residents, can confess, because I am one of them as well, are a little bit skeptical on the change in their water bills. But however, with the education that the Central Basin has already provided us with water conservation programs, turf rebates, and educational tours that we have been invited to, we believe that the city of Southgate sees the necessary investment, and any other water option will be costing more. Again, on behalf of the Southgate Chamber of Commerce, and as a resident of the city of Southgate, I ask that we vote yes on the California Water Fix project. Thank you.
Barbara Barragan Padilla.
Good morning, Chair Apodaca and board members. Barbara Barragan-Parilla with Restore the Delta. I'm glad the business community is here today because I have a lot to share with them. First off, at the Metropolitan Water District workshop, it isn't that Westlands just dropped out of the project. Nobody answered the question, who's going to cover the CVP share for 45%? Not one CVP contractor has stepped up to participate. Is California Water Fix now a 1 or 2 tunnel project? Director Keitlinger said, it could be 1 tunnel for 6,000 CFS at $10 billion. What are you really voting to pay 26% of what? And for how much water? Number 3, I think one of the most disturbing things that you should be worried about is that Metropolitan Water District won't release agreements to member agencies on the creation of the JPAs. Why? What is it that they're afraid that you're going to know? I want to quote to you from the auditor's report from this morning. DWR had not completed either an economic or a financial analysis to demonstrate the financial viability of WaterFix. Furthermore, DWR has not fully implemented a governance structure for the design and construction phase of WaterFix. Moreover, DWR has not maintained program management documents for WaterFix. The planning costs escalated. What was supposed to be about $140, $150 million for planning went up to $280 million. The auditor recommends competitive bidding for design and construction. Why? Because there was cronyism between Metropolitan Water District Associates and DWR when Chuck Gardner, as part of the Hallmark Group, was brought in. The auditor wrote, DWR did not follow state law when it replaced the program manager for the Conservation and Conveyance Program. DWR did not accurately value its initial contract with the new program manager, the Hallmark Group, or ensure that it received fair and reasonable pricing for one of Hallmark's contractors. The state auditor is recommending a complete economic and financial analysis before this project moves forward. Last, I guess I just want to close for local people here from the business community on the record one more time. Water that goes to the ocean is not wasted. People need to go back to their 8th grade geography classes and understand the connection between rivers and oceans. And in addition, the job creation numbers, independent economists, the American Water Association, you get for every $1 million you spend on local projects, 12 to 20 jobs. Independent economists have come out that Cal Water Fix only makes 4 to 6 jobs for every $1 million spent, because they're going to be bringing in international tunneling firms. It is not a union-friendly job, but the business community and the unions have been misinformed with talking points. The state auditor got it right. You don't have to do this today. You really don't. Thank you.
Are there any other speaker cards? This concludes the public presentations.
We do want to,
go to item 3. Good afternoon, directors, and good morning. Before we get started, Kevin Wadia will give the presentation today, and Kevin's okay with being interrupted for questions by the board as to go along? And any questions that he can't answer, Roger Patterson from Metropolitan is here, and if he can't answer them, he'll get the information for us eventually. I just want to say a few words about what are we doing here today, because there's a misconception comes out that this is this the final vote? Are we giving a blank check out? And what about all the unanswered questions? And the best way I can sum it up is a quote from Winston Churchill that said during World War II, during the Battle of Britain, he said, "This is not the end, this is not the beginning of the end, but it is perhaps the end of the beginning." And that's the process we're in here. We're actually discussing whether to authorize Metropolitan to continue to negotiate and work on the project. We will be back here discussing this project many times over the next couple of years before anything final is decided. With that, I'll leave it to Kevin.
Good morning, Mr. President, directors. Primarily, I've structured the presentation today to summarize the workshop that MWD had last week, because that was one of the reasons you asked to have this meeting today. So I just wanted to refer you to what's in your packet, and then I'll go through a presentation, and again, interrupt me anytime you have questions, or certainly at the end. So in your packet is all the meeting materials from MWD's workshop last Tuesday, including questions and answers, all the PowerPoint presentations, and the actual board letter that they will be acting on next Tuesday. So that's all there for your information. We can refer to that as we go forward. And so what I'm going to do is walk through one of those PowerPoint presentations that they gave last week, which we've incorporated a few slides from a few others to address some of the key issues. For the most part, I'm just going to go through this and just say, here's what's on the slide. You already know that because you've seen this many times, but there are a few points where I'll stop and reinforce some of the things that are timely, or, again, stop me at any time that you have any questions. So this is the presentation that was given last week. I have to go back one. Oh, I need to point over here. So one of the key points is that this water fix is consistent with Metropolitan's integrated resources plan. So this is not a standalone. This is part of the all of the above approach of investing in local recycling and other local projects. So it's not like it's one or the other. This is part of a portfolio of projects, including this project. This just shows you a lot of the history of the development of the State Water Project, and so that's all there if you have questions about it or where things are. That's just there. I'll touch on some of these risks later, but again, the project is mainly looking at addressing some of the risks and the constraints of moving water through the Delta, and we'll come back to many of these. Again, this is just a lot of the history and the various studies that have been done over the last 70 plus years on the Delta and moving water through the Delta. This is a key slide. It really shows what's happened to the water supply that the contractors, both the federal and the state water contractors, get from the state and federal water projects, and how it's degraded significantly over time. Mainly due to environmental conflicts within the Delta with fish and other endangered species. And of course the question is, what does the future hold? But again, you can draw a pretty nice straight line there of what's happening to the yield of the state and federal water projects due to the conflicts that exist in the Delta with the environment. Again, this is Bay Delta key policies and some of the milestone events over the years that Met and others have taken. This is an interesting picture of Governor Brown and his late dog Sutter, looking at just some of the reports that have been done on this project over the last decade or so. And this just reiterates that there's been 10 years of public involvement and thousands and thousands of fact sheets and studies done on this project. This really highlights the process that Met's going through, and really in the middle there, those are the 3 white papers that they've produced over the last few months that we've had discussions about. And then, of course, coming up is the special board meeting next week to vote on the project. And now just a few slides on each of the 3 white papers. Infrastructure, again, the main thing here is managing the design and construction. This shows how the original proposal was to build an above-ground aqueduct, the peripheral canal back in the 80s, and how the proposal is to go underground and certainly expedite and facilitate the construction with the 2 tunnels. This really shows you the tunnels and how they fit in with other large tunnels that have been built around the world in the last 10 years, or showing that these tunnels are something that's being done around the world. And this just shows you some of the other mega projects that have been evaluated to lessons learned on how to manage big projects like this. Operations, I want to highlight a few key points here. Flexibility is a key. The flexibility that the project gives that currently is one of the main constraints. And then the bottom bullet there is really important, is the adaptive management program that's been agreed to between DWR and the contractors and the regulatory agencies, particularly the fishery regulatory agencies. This adaptive management program that's been developed, which will look at issues in the future and decide how to manage those issues, has really been key to the approval now of the federal and state regulatory agencies for moving the project forward. Again, this shows you how the flexibility of having a second intake really is beneficial. Instead of having to move water through the delta and through all the channels, the twin tunnels give you a second way to get that water to the southern end of the delta to the export pumps. This is a key graphic that shows how the water flows through the delta. This was in winter of 2012-13. That shows the CFS flow that was flowing through the delta. This shows you how much water was exported in that winter by the state and federal water projects. And then this shows you what the expectation is, how much additional water, so that would basically be the area between the green line and the white line, that could be exported with the twin tunnels in place. So that really shows you how the project really enables getting more water out of the delta, particularly during those heavy storm flows. Another key factor is seismic risk, and this shows you seismically an earthquake, a 6.5 earthquake in Antioch, simulating here levee failures and how seawater would intrude into the delta. So what the red there is showing how the blue water, blue fresh water is now saline, and how all those islands would be flooded, and how obviously you wouldn't be able to move water through the delta with that salinity in there. But with the twin tunnels shown there by the green dotted line, how you'd be able to take still fresh water from the Sacramento River, which is above sea level, underneath the delta, and continue to operate if that were to happen. Director Grajeda?
Kevin, what gives Metropolitan the confidence that the tunnels could survive?
Well, they've done some geotechnical studies, but there's more to be done. But again, they think that the soil is fairly competent down there when they get down 150 feet, and so they will be doing additional geotechnical studies to make sure those tunnels are competent and could sustain this. But tunnels are pretty good at surviving shaking, and they're confident that they can build tunnels that will be seismically stable. Here's some animation that I think in the interest of time I'll not show you, but it basically shows you over time how in the course of about a week all that saline water comes into the delta and makes it completely saline. So we can go back to that if you want to see it, but it's some pretty cool animation showing how that takes about a week for all those islands to be flooded with seawater. Finance and cost allocation. As General Manager Hunt talked, there's a lot of interest and concern right now about what the cost impact. But the key point I want to make is, and this has been made by several speakers today, this is the least cost solution to providing Metropolitan's water supply reliability. There are other things that could be done, but they cost more. And I think I'll show a couple slides on that. This shows how the cost breaks down. Again, this is what had been planned, the cost split between the state and federal project, and then how Met's share breaks out. But again, the point is, it's almost certain that this is going to have to be reconfigured. And if and when that happens, it'll come back to Met for a future decision. There's lots of permutations. There's lots of ways this could shake out. There will need to be another round of negotiations if Westlands and other federal contractors don't change their mind. But what's being asked for now is a decision that, based on this cost allocation and this share of the benefits, that Metropolitan steps forward and says, we're in for this project, and other people will decide whether they're in or not. And then if a renegotiation needs to occur, then that renegotiation will occur, and the project will come back to Metropolitan, and we'll certainly bring it back to you for your reconsideration if and when that happens. So, this is one of those things that just has to happen. But this is what's going to the Met Board next week, is based on this cost split, Metropolitan contributing based on the cost split that did get developed. Director Hayda?
So, can you be more specific? So, is Metropolitan Water District voting on the 26% only?
Yes, they're voting on their 25.9% share of the roughly $17 billion project. So they're voting on this cost split. And this just shows how the $16.7 billion, again, based on that cost split, breaks out between the federal and state projects, and then how Metropolitan's share is about $4.3 billion. Some of the key questions, and I really want to hone in on one that's particularly timely, is the governance and implementation. There's been some questions about how the finance JPA might work, so we'll talk about that. And Roger Patterson, MWE's Assistant General Manager, is here to assist if you have further questions. But one of the key questions is how that might work. So I really wanted to talk about this. This has been a timely issue. There's been some back and forth between the San Diego County Water Authority and MWD on this matter in the last week. And the question of the finance JPA, and does that bring additional financial risk to MWD by participating in this finance JPA? So I've discussed this at length with experts at MWD, including Roger and the other people, and I'll give you my understanding of it again, and Roger will hopefully confirm it, and if not, I'll ask him to correct me. But here's the situation. Each of the 24 state water contractors who would be financially responsible for their share of the state water project cost of this project has a contract which they signed with the state of California back in the 1960s. Metropolitan's was in 1960. I think they were the first, but they all have contracts, and those contracts authorize the Department of Water Resources to build the state water project. And the California Water Fix is the completion of the construction of the state water project. And so Water Fix is part of the construction of the state water project, which those contractors all signed up for back in the 1960s. And those contracts provide that those contractors each need to pay their pro rata share of the construction and other costs, obviously, of the state water project based on what's called the Table A entitlement, which Metropolitan has about 47% of the Table A entitlement. That's where Metropolitan becomes responsible for 47% of the state water project costs. So, if there is some event, so what's happened is, because of all the litigation that's been filed to block the construction of California Water Fix, DWR has filed a validation action which would then give them the authority to issue revenue bonds. And it's expected that it will be many years before all that litigation is resolved and DWR gets the authority to issue those revenue bonds. So rather than sit and wait for many, many years to move forward on the project, the alternative is to form this finance JPA, where Metropolitan and other probably large contractors will issue the debt. That debt will then fund the initial construction, and then when the DWR is able to complete their validation action, then they would issue debt and then refund the money back to the finance JPA. So the point is that whether or not Metropolitan is a participant in the finance JPA doesn't change the fact that each one of those 24 state water contractors is financially responsible for their prorated share of the construction of the state water project. So Metropolitan's responsibility doesn't change. It's still their 47% of the state water project, as is everybody else's share. So whether or not Met's a participant or not in the water fix, I don't believe changes their financial exposure. Are there any questions on that? Because this is a key point that's been around for the last week or so.
Well, I have a hypothetical question. I mean, that makes sense, but what if someone were to build something where it's going to cost $300 billion, and it was just totally ridiculous? I mean, how could I be required to pay that? I mean, there should be some kind of a limit in the contract that says, I would think, that says subject to something. I mean, it just couldn't be unlimited that the state would want to build something and you would be responsible for it. Is that? And I think that's what I'm hearing from the public is that there's, how can you be on the hook to pay for something if it's outlandish? And I'm not saying this project is outlandish.
No, but it's that's a fair question because we get it all the time. And the reality is there is no contractual protection against an increase in cost. If the project cost goes up, then what we're required to pay will go up. So what you do is try to get the best cost estimate you can and build in the best risk management tools that you can to control cost and schedule. That's really the key to any of these projects, is to deliver it on time and on budget. And that's a key piece of why we have all pushed to have a joint powers authority that we can manage to build the project, because it is us, that the contractors that are paying for it. And we have reached agreement with the state of California that they will, in fact, contract with a joint powers authority to design, build, turn it over to the state at that point, and then the JPA will go away. So it's always a concern on any big project. We've looked at various ways to manage that risk, and we think we're in a good position. But I wouldn't say that it's by contract cap. There will be no such thing. So we've got to control and manage it ourselves.
Thank you.
So putting that in my words, in other words, it's in Metropolitan's interest to build the project as efficiently as possible, because they're paying for it. Nobody else. I mean, their share. So why would they do that? And then the other thing I would say is they can only build a project that's consistent with the approvals in terms of capacity and all the operational constraints that have been imposed on the project. So they can't just build a 20,000 CFS project instead of a 9,000 CFS project. You couldn't do that, because that would mean you'd have to restart the entire process of all that review. So I hope that's responsive. This is the point, again, I want to make. This was made by this speaker from the Municipal Water District of Orange County. Metropolitan could do other things. There are other things that could be done, but they would cost substantially more. So when we've talked to you about what are the impacts of this on our customers, well, if they did something else, then those impacts would be more. They wouldn't be zero. That's a fundamental point. they wouldn't be zero. And so if Metropolitan did something else, like investing in several large projects like the Carson one that they're studying, or building probably half a dozen seawater desalination plants up and down the California coastline like the one that's in Carlsbad, it would cost a lot more than this project to develop the same amount of water supply. So that's just a fundamental point. This is the least cost solution to providing the water supply reliability that Metropolitan has as its goal.
Kevin,
Yes, sir.
Before you leave, go back to, so something that came up today, San Diego Water Authority is a partner. Do you know how much water San Diego takes from the Poseidon?
From the Carlsbad plant?
Yes, sir.
I know the capacity of it is, 50 or 56,000 acre feet per year. It's in that
So
range.
is that a substantial amount based on the price?
Well,
It's 8% of their supply, I believe is the correct number.
But I mean, in terms of the cost per acre foot.
the cost per acre foot that we typically hear for that project right now is about $2,400 per acre
So
foot.
how did that affect their rates?
Mr. Hunt probably has watched that closely.
San Diego had a policy that they adopted to increase their independence from Metropolitan, has invested in many projects. The transfer with Imperial, when you look at all the costs, is fairly expensive. This project is expensive. So their rates down there, and it's at the end of the pipeline, they do not have groundwater. Their rates are significantly more expensive than our area, on the average about double.
And it's not a fair question because they don't have groundwater.
Exactly.
But they're paying for that, and I would think they would have some close to disadvantaged communities down there that are paying for that too. But
Sure.
It's reliability, isn't it? And it's
Yeah.
bringing in water so they can continue with their livelihood.
Every water utility is in their own unique situation. San Diego is at the end of the pipeline, and Metropolitan does not have strong groundwater down there. They have some intermittent pockets. A robust recycling program. And so they embarked on alternatives. They have a storage, they built reservoirs down there, trying to shore up their, and I applaud them for that, but it's come at an expense. And the local projects that they built to improve the reliability, like the storage, are great. The water supply ones, they put independence over efficiency in how they did it. It's a policy decision their board made. I'm not going to discuss when we did. That's what they decided to do. But they chose owning the supply over the most efficient source. And I think that's a fair way to put it. So their rates are significantly more than here, but it's not a good comparison because they're in a totally different situation than us.
It almost seems like they're dependent on the pipeline to get down there, and they were concerned about that. So they took this drastic measure to look at Poseidon. It seems to me we're doing the same thing with our intake from the Delta, that we're very dependent on that. And if something happens to that, it cuts off our water.
Yes.
Regarding what we get from Metropolitan. It seems like we're looking at almost the same thing as San Diego did.
Yeah, it's really the concern, the biggest concern we have is the movement of water through the Delta.
I understand that.
And that is easily disrupted by a variety of conditions. That's the elegance of the tunnel. While expensive, it does provide a way to avoid many of the disruptors in the supply.
We're working on trying to build towards reliability because if we have a situation, how long would it take? If that your slide on the earthquake.
At that point, you'd be totally at the whim of Mother Nature. There's no way that the projects would have enough water stored upstream to flush that out. You'd have to wait for a wet winter and wait for Mother Nature to wash it out for you. What you'd have to do is because now all these islands would be full of seawater. First, you'd have to repair all the levee breaks, which that scenario showed 50. You'd have to repair them all so that seawater now stayed inside the islands, and then you'd have to wait for Mother Nature to flush out all the water that's in the channel. So, depending on what time of year it is, it could be many, many months before that happened.
Or years.
Could be if you had a dry winter, yeah.
And you'd have no water coming down the canal.
Yeah, move ahead. This is really kind of the key slide, concluding slide at MWD's workshop last week. These are the 6 benchmarks that MWD identified 10 years ago for a Delta solution. And as their staff stated, this project meets those 6 benchmarks, and that's why they're recommending that they move ahead next week. And we've talked about many of these already. This is another slide that I thought was very interesting. We talked about reliability and what's Metropolitan's reliability. Well, right now, I'm just going to look at the year 2040. If you just look at their current system, their current water supply resources, their modeling shows that in 2040, 80% of the time they would be in an allocation. So 8 years out of 10 or 4 years out of 5, they would be in a shortage allocation, which we would, of course, then be passing through to our customers. That wouldn't be very fun. But with the development of their integrated resources plan, which includes the water fix and other things, their investments in recycling and other things, their forecast is that instead of 80% of the time being in shortage, that they'd be 0% of the time in shortage in 2040. So this shows you, again, the reliability factor that's, again, this isn't all due to water fix, but a large portion of that change is due to the water supply from water fix. So this is about reliability, and we've talked about that numerous times. And that's the end of the MET presentation for last week. And at this point, we're ready to move ahead to the recommended action. And I can read that, or we could have further questions and answers, depending on your preference, Mr. President.
Mr. Warrior, I don't know if you've had a chance this morning or Metropolitan to take a look at the state auditor's comments. Have you had a chance?
I've seen the summary, and perhaps I'm biased, but the one thing I would state is that it confirms that the approach that Metropolitan has taken to designing constructing this project is a good approach. Because instead of relying on the Department of Water Resources to do that, which the state auditor is very critical of their capability to manage large projects, Metropolitan and some of the other contractors are proposing, and DWR has agreed, to let Metropolitan and other contractors who have much more experience in designing and building large projects like this manage the design and construction. So from that aspect, I think the state auditor's comment validates the approach that's being proposed for designing constructing California water fix.
In fact, one would have expected for a project of this magnitude for the state auditor to get involved and take a look at that and evaluate it. Nonetheless, I think I agree with you saying that it deserved a level of scrutiny that was put in place by the state auditor, and I just glanced at it, to be honest with you, very quickly here. But personally, I think it is good to have that opinion of the state auditor at this state of the game rather than later, because it will correct the mistakes of the past. According to her, there have been mistakes by the past by DWR, but this is going to set the course straight, and I think a foundation of forming a JPA to administer the construction, monitor the construction, implement the construction, and the design of this project is a sound decision.
Any other questions before I move on to the recommendation? Okay, so the recommendation before you today is that the board approve, adopt, and authorize the president to sign resolution number 10-17-928, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Central Basin Municipal Water District expressing support for the California water fix, number 1, and number 2, to direct the Central Basin representatives at the Metropolitan Water District to take a support position for the project. Mr. Hunt, did you have anything else?
No, just that we should probably read the resolution into the record.
Yeah.
There's been some.
Yeah.
Do you want me?
Is there any other questions by the directors prior to reading the resolution then?
I believe that, for the record, that there was a resolution that was provided to the board at the time the agenda went out, and maybe to the public, and I believe the staff has worked on that resolution.
Yes, we
it has a red line version.
Yeah, and we'll be glad to just head up, mention where the red line areas are.
That'd be great.
we deleted a whereas where it says that the failure to take decisive action would be unacceptable risk to the environment of the Delta and statewide economy. I thought that was a little too severe. Some spelled out the Central Basin Municipal Water District and said we're supportive of the proposed project as presented, which is a qualifier, which is correct at this time. A couple of other minor editorial, and then the big changes in the therefore, we ordered a sentence that says in order to, the reason why we're therefore to improve water supply reliability, enhance water quality, protect the Delta, create a more resilient and sustainable water system, the board members of the municipal, and then we added that support the California Water Fix as it has been presented to the board in the 3 water papers and with a cost participation of 25.9%. So those are the changes we made to it. It's basically substantially the same as what we had before, just more definition and clarity. And again, we'd be glad, because this is a major, we'd be glad to go, and I think we should go through it, whereas we're asked if the directors have any comments or changes in any part. So if you do that.
You'd like me to read the resolution?
Yeah, whereas by whereas, if that's okay with the board.
You confused me. You want me to do what you just did? I'm sorry.
No, I'd like you to read it from beginning to end.
The whole resolution?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Paragraph, whereas by, if you like, I'll do it.
Can you do it?
You were not ready for it?
I was not ready for that. Okay. Go ahead, you read it.
He's tired. Okay, so this is resolution number 1017-928, a resolution of the Board of Directors of Central Basin Municipal Water District in support of the California Water Fix and California Eco Restore. Whereas the water supplies from Northern California that move across the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta are vital to the economy of California, serving 25 million people for drinking and irrigation uses. And whereas the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta has reached a point where reliability of receiving a continuous clean water supply is at a dangerous low point, and whereas the Delta is in a state of environmental stress due to the loss of wetlands habitat, invasive species, and depletion of native food supplies, pumping operations, and other factors. And whereas state and federal agencies have worked for several years toward developing a comprehensive package of ecosystem and water system improvements to address fishery conflicts in the Delta and long-term threats to the state's water supply. And whereas California Water Fix includes the construction of 3 intakes north of the Delta, a 35-mile, 9,000 CFF underground diversion facility, and modification of Clifton Court forebay that will provide operational pumping flexibility and protect against water supply disruptions due to the sea level rise, seismic activity, and flood events. And whereas California Eco Restore will pursue more than 30,000 acres of critical Delta restoration over the next 5 years, including improvements of habitat conditions for fisheries, mitigation, restoring tidal and non-tidal wetland habitat for native wildlife, and improving connectivity among existing grasslands and other natural habitat. And whereas the California Department of Water Resources and the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, the National Marine Fisheries Service, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service released their biological opinion for the construction operation of the California Water Fix. Both biological opinions found the construction and operation as proposed would not jeopardize the continued existence of species listed in the Endangered Species Act, and the project would not destroy or adversely modify critical habitat for these species. Whereas Metropolitan Water District of Southern California has prepared 3 comprehensive white papers pertaining to infrastructure, operation, and finance allocation, and can be located on their website at www.mwdhdo.com. And whereas California Water Fix will complement water supply projects by allowing the safe capture of water in wet years and above normal years so that it can be stored and used in dry years. And whereas the California Water Fix provides the most long-term sustainable benefits toward a reliable water supply, whereas Central Basin Municipal Water District is supportive of the proposed project as presented to protect drinking water supplies, enhance water quality, and help to restore natural flow patterns for the benefit of native species. And whereas Central Basin Municipal Water District is supportive of the Metropolitan Water District's cost participation of 25.9%, resulting in a 25.9% share of water supply benefits. And whereas Central Basin Municipal Water District is supportive of the Metropolitan Water District plans to work with other state and federal contractors to efficiently manage design and construction of the California Water Fix project. Now therefore be it resolved, in order to improve water supply reliability, enhance water quality, protect the Delta, and create a more resilient and sustainable water system, the board members of Central Basin Municipal Water District hereby support the California Water Fix as it been presented to the board in 3 water papers and with a cost participation of 25.9% to achieve co-equal goals of water supply reliability and ecosystem restoration in a cost-effective manner. The board members, so the request is for the board to vote on that first.
Kevin, what is staff's recommendation?
Staff's recommendation is to approve the resolution as proposed. And I don't say that lightly. We've heard a lot of input over the last several months on this. We've researched it. Between Tammy, Kevin, and I, we've read almost every paper that's out there. We read the blogs that are out there on water, the papers that are out there. And we believe that, as I said in the introduction to this thing here, this is not the final vote on it. This is not a blank check. This is an authorization to continue working on the project.
Motion? I'll make the motion, except to approve staff recommendation. Second. Roll call.
Director Osculi?
Yes, but may I indulge, please? You know, I think everyone agrees that this has been a very deliberate and inclusive process. In fact, I think this has been our 3rd public meeting that we've had. We did that for the sole purpose of being able to invite opinions that needed to be shared, that needed to be heard by this board, to evaluate the project and be a part of the evaluation process for us. I have personally, and I'm sure every board member in here has done the same thing, we have heard you clearly, we have considered, we have invited to hear your opinions, and we have included that in our decision-making process. I have researched it, I have read about it. I understand that this project has been in the works for over a decade now. It has been scrutinized by different entities with different interests, including the regulatory agencies. So it has gone through this vigorous process of being vetted, and it has been vetted completely. As Kevin mentioned, this is not the end of the process. This is the beginning of the process. We are going to take a look at it if there are any changes, if there are any modifications. You know, Kevin, you said it, and I agree with you. We are not issuing a carte blanche, a blank check to anyone. We are just simply supporting this project to move on as it has been presented to us today. You know, we've said that before. The viability and survival of the economy in California relies on a sustainable water resource. If we don't have that, we won't have an economy. We won't have an economy that is the 6th strongest economy in the world. So it is our job and it is our responsibility to make sure that we are going to maintain that position. California Water Fix is going to maintain that reliability that we all need as Californians. And because of that, Mr. President, in good conscience, I casted my vote of yes in supporting the project as is.
Director Vasquez?
No, she's going to call roll.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Director Vasquez? Director Grajeda?
Before I vote, I just want to state that I concur with my colleague, John Escui. I'm not as eloquent as John is, but I agree with everything he said. I don't know that anyone can answer all the questions right now that are out there for this project. I think you have to start the project, and that's what we're doing now. We're providing our support to this project based on the information that's been provided to us, and then we go from there. I think you're hearing more people talk about this project because for the first time it's in front of them. Many of these contractors, it's now in front of them and they need to take action. Otherwise, if it had been in front of them 2 years ago, they'd have taken action at that time too. So Central Basin Municipal Water is responsible for bringing imported water into our basin. Whether folks use it or not, we're responsible for bringing that in. We get that from Metropolitan Water District, and Metropolitan Water District is responsible for providing that and having that water ready when we need it. There's always been this concern about where that water starts at the Delta. And this has been an issue that's been discussed for many, many years. Will there be an earthquake? Who can say? Will this fail in the future? Who can say? But what I see Metropolitan Water District doing is trying to head off a potential problem that could shut down this water from coming down the California Aqueduct, and thereby not doing what a good agency would do to make sure there's more reliability in their system. The water agencies and cities out there that have water agencies that are doing a good job are looking and doing the same thing. They're looking to see if they get groundwater, if their wells are in good shape, and if they're not, they plan to drill new wells. That their resources are there, that they have generators, backup generators to provide power when it goes down. MWD is looking at a situation where if they're cut off from the Delta, what are they going to do? And they're trying to take care of that. So based on that, based on what I've been provided, based on the 3 meetings we've had here and everything I've seen, I support this project and I vote yes.
Director Chacon?
I'm not ready to make a decision yet.
Director Gedney? Director Hawkins?
Yes.
Director Aceituno?
Yes.
President Apodaca?
Yes.
Director Chacon?
I've thought about this, and very well, I heard both sides, and I mean, there has been little changes here and there, but I cast my vote as a yes.
The second part of the resolution is direct our Central Basin representatives of the Metropolitan Water District to take a support position on the project.
Repeat that again? I think the motion was...
Was the motion for both? That covered both? Good. I'm happy then. Thank you very much.
We're done? Oh, okay.
Good. That included that. Okay. Thank you very much.
General Counsel?
No report today, Mr. President.
General Manager, any other comments?
I just thank the audience for their attendance and their participation. It has had a significant effect in the drafting of our resolutions. I thank them very much.
If no one on the board has any other comments? No. If not, meeting's adjourned.